Hello, grade 8 students. In this video, we're going to talk about our new lesson, which is about the natural barriers. So, in this video, we will identify the natural barriers in the human body. We will determine the signs of inflammation, and also we will study about the process of phagocytosis. Natural barriers of the human body. First, we have the skin, which is the first line of defense, and it represents the natural barrier. Also, we have the eyes, or the tears. They are classified as one of the natural barriers, and they help in the process of defense. Also, we have ears. So we have the ears, the waxing in the ears represent a line of defense, and we have what's known to stop this usage. So you have to stop it because it's harmful for your ears. So you have to stop this. Also have the mouth. We have some line of defense in the mouth, also at the level of the stomach and the level of the sweat glands. Okay, they have an important role in the defense in the human body. So let's start first with this question. The natural barriers will form the first line of defense. They represent the first line of defense in the human body. So the question is, what would happen if these natural barriers they were broken? What will happen to the body if these natural barriers were broken? What will be the result? And what are the consequences? If the first line of defense is broken, we will have infection. So what is infection? Infection is the invasion and the multiplication of the pathogens in the body. Multiplication of pathogens and other microbes and bacteria inside the body, this is classified as infection. So infection, as I said, it's the invasion and the multiplication. It's, for example, the offense, or it's the invasion of pathogens into the body. It's infection. So what's the meaning of pathogen? Pathogen is any non-self organism. It's a non-self. Pay attention to this. So pathogen, it's not given to something that belongs to my body. It's given to something that doesn't belong to my body. This is called a pathogen. It's a non-self that infects the body, and it's capable of causing a disease. So pathogen, it's any non-self that doesn't belong to my body that cause infection, like the bacteria, like the viruses. One of these pathogens is the coronavirus, COVID-19 nowadays. So it's capable of causing diseases. So this is the definition of pathogen. So you have to know, I repeat this. Pathogen is any non-self, and let's underline non-self. It's non-self, meaning that it doesn't belong to my body. It will infect the body and it can cause diseases. So this is the definition of the pathogen. Whereas the definition of infection is the invasion and the multiplication of the pathogens inside the body. For example, you have to know that whenever, let's say, COVID-19 coronavirus, it enters into the body. So this is classified as a pathogen. It's a non-self. Okay, it's a non-self that infect the body and capable of causing a disease. While infection, this is, for example, the COVID-19 virus, it invades my body, multiplicates, and causes disease. So this is called infection. Inflammatory response. What is an inflammatory response? Definition of inflammation. Inflammation is the immune response against an infection. It is usually the second line of defense in our body. So inflammation It's the immune response against infection. It's the second line of defense inside our body. So here, inflammatory response, for example, and inflammatory reaction, evolution of the microbial infection through a thorn. So we will have a scar here, okay, and we have the bacterium, they enter inside the blood vessels, and the phagocyte will move toward them to reaction. So inflammatory response, these are the signs. For example, chemical alarm signs. So here we have redness, and we have a lot of problems that will appear after an inflammatory response. So what are these problems? What are the different phases? What are the 4 signs of inflammation? What does each sign mean? And we will talk about what happens during inflammation and what are the different types of cells that are interfering in such a reaction. So inflammatory response, let's start first with the signs of the inflammatory response. We have 4 signs of inflammation. First sign is redness. Second, it's heat. Third, swelling. Fourth, it's edema. So we have 4 signs of inflammation. Number 1, redness. It becomes red in color. Heat, and it becomes very hot. Swelling, or it's called edema, it swells. Number 4, it's the pain. So redness, heat, swelling, edema, and the pain. So swelling or edema, they have the same meaning, okay, meaning that it swells. Let's talk about the first sign of inflammation. The first sign of inflammation is called redness. Redness is due to the dilation of the blood vessels and the flow of more blood to the site of infection. Redness, as I said, is due to the dilation. So the blood vessels, they dilate, and the flow of more blood to the site of infection. So redness, more blood will arrive to the site of infection to help in the process and to help in controlling this pathogen or this bacteria or this virus. And this is because we have redness. So more blood will move toward the site of infection and the blood vessels will dilate. Second sign, which is the heat. What is the cause of the heat? The heat is usually due to the dilation of the blood vessels and the fast flow of the blood. So more blood will arrive to the site of infection. Movement of more blood where the immune response will start will cause the feeling of heat and hot. So the blood vessels will dilate and the flow of blood cells to the site of infection will increase and will be faster and faster, and this will cause the feeling of heat. So fever helps to combat bacteria due to the fact that pathogens cannot survive under high temperature. So fever, it helps to combat bacteria because they can't survive or they can't work under high temperature and they will die under high temperature. Sign number 3, it's swelling, or as we call it, the edema. Swelling is due to the flow of the immune cells across the capillary walls toward the site of infection. So swelling, it's due to the flow of the immune cells across the capillary walls toward the infection site. So swelling, it's due to the flow of the immune cells across the capillary walls toward the site of infection. So this is what we know by swelling, and this is the cause of swelling because more immune cells, more, for example, monocyte, granulocyte, or maybe B lymphocyte, or maybe T lymphocyte. We will see later in the coming slides. Sign number 4, it's the pain. Pain is usually due to the swelling that creates a pressure on the nerve cell in the surrounding of the infection site. So pain, we have swelling. This swelling will create a pressure on the nerve cell, and this will lead to the feeling of pain. Because if I do a pressure, for example, on my hand, this will lead to the pressure on my hand, the pressure on the nerve cells, and this will lead to the pain. Same as the swelling, we create pressure on the nerve cell and the site of the infection. So this will create what's known by the pain. So till now we have 4 signs of pain. The first sign is the redness. We said that redness is due to the dilation of the blood vessels and the flow of more blood to the site of infection. Number 2, it's the heat. It's due to the dilation of the blood vessels and the fast flow of the blood toward the site of infection where the immune response starts. Number 3, it's swelling. It's due to the flow of the immune cell across the capillary walls toward the site of infection. And number 4, the pain, which is due to the swelling that creates a pressure on the nerve cells, and this will lead to the pressure and to the pain in the surrounding of the infection site. Note that the first cells to cross the capillary walls, they are the monocytes and the granulocytes. That's why monocytes and granulocytes, they have a role in phagocytosis. We call them phagocytes. So here you have to know that macrophages, monocytes and granulocytes, they have a role in phagocytosis, although they are called macrophages or sites. So when the monocyte crosses the capillary wall toward the site of infection, it becomes a macrophage, which has a role in phagocytosis. When it crosses the capillary walls, it moves toward the site of infection, it becomes a macrophage and has a role in phagocytosis. So here the tissue injury where the bacteria will enter, and whenever it enters here, we have phagocytes, they migrate, we have vasodilation and increase of permeability, and we have the role of phagocytosis where they become phagocytes or macrophages and they engulf or eat. Characteristics of inflammation: we have instantaneous or we have non-specific. Inflammation is instantaneous. What the meaning of instantaneous? Meaning that it starts immediately. So start inflammation, it's instantaneous, meaning that it starts immediately, while the non-specific, meaning that it doesn't depend on the identity of the pathogen, meaning that it kills whatever it's non-self. So it's non-self, it doesn't depend on the identity, whether it is, so it moves toward it and will kill it. So it's non-specific. Here we have the signs, for example, steps of the inflammatory response, where we have a pin or wound injury through the skin. So bacteria pass the skin. Whenever it passes through the skin, we'll have the damaged tissues cause the phagocytes to come. Number 2, the phagocytes, which are the macrophages and the granulocytes, they cross the capillary wall. Number 3, the phagocytes engulf the bacteria by the process which is phagocytosis. We're going to talk about this. And number 4, the platelets will close the injury. If you remember that platelets, they have a role in clotting of the injury. If you remember, whenever we talk about the blood component. So here, the macrophage, while ingesting the bacteria step by step, the macrophage will extend forward to capture the bacteria. The bacteria, they are captured and they are trapped by the macrophage membrane. The bacteria which are trapped, they are absorbed one by one and digested. So here the macrophage, which is yellow in color, it's digesting the bacteria that are blue in color. phagocytosis. So phagon meaning that eat, cytose cell. So phagocytosis eating other cell. There is a definition for phagocytosis. It's a non-specific immune response that ensured by the phagocytes, which are granulocytes and monocytes that are called microphages. These cells, they come near the microbe, they adhere to it, engulf it, and digest it without the identification of their nature. That's why it's called non-specific immune response. So first, the microphage comes near the bacteria. Second, it adheres to it. Third, ingested, digested, and kills this bacteria. So the steps of phagocytosis, you have to study these steps. The first step, the phagocytes, they approach toward the pathogen. Number two, the phagocytes, they adhere to the pathogen and they get in direct contact with it. Number three, the phagocytes engulfs, ingests, and digests the pathogen. Okay? So engulf, ingest, and finally digest the bacteria. And these are the different steps of the process of phagocytosis. So this is the macrophage, which is the WBC, engulfs bacterium in the immune system. What is phagocytosis? The main actors, they are the phagocytes, they are the monocyte, they have horseshoe-shaped nucleus, and the granulocyte that have multi-lobed nucleus. They have a role in phagocytosis. So definition of phagocytosis, this is the official definition. It's a non-specific, immediate, it occurs immediately, immune response or instantaneous immune response against infection. The main actors, they are the phagocytes, they are the monocytes, and granulocytes. So the first line of defense, the skin, provides the physical and chemical barriers, and we have the natural barriers, the tears inside the eyes. They have an important role in protection and forming the first line of defense in the. And we have number three, the nasal secretion from the nose. They're called nasal secretion. They have an important role. And also we have the gastric juice at the level of the stomach, has an important role in forming the first line of defense. So the natural barriers, they represent the tears in the eyes, the nasal secretions, the skin, the urinary system, the mucus, also the ciliated cells that have cilia. Cilia is like hair-like structure and they can move, and also we can talk about the gastric juice. So these form the natural barriers. The slide is as revision for what we have discovered before. So please, guys, you have to study these notes. These notes are very important to study the process of phagocytosis, definition, the main actors, the steps of phagocytosis. Also, you have to know the different signs of inflammation, heat, redness, swelling and edema and pain, and you have to know every single step, every single sign, what are the causes of this sign. Also, you have to know the process of phagocytosis, the different steps of phagocytosis, what are the steps. The phagocyte approaches toward the pathogen, it gets in direct contact with it, and then it finally engulfs it, ingested, and digested. Please study these notes and be ready for our session, okay, this week. Also, you have to know the natural barriers that are the tears, the nasal secretions, and the nose, the skin, also including the sweating, the urinary system where we excrete some of the waste, mucus, ciliated cells, and we have the gastric juice present inside the stomach. So these are the natural barriers inside our body. And don't forget that the cells that cross the capillary wall, the first cells to cross the capillary wall, they are called the monocytes and the granulocytes. They are called the phagocytes. They have a role in phagocytosis. Okay, so study these notes. See you then. Bye bye.